All right, good morning, everyone. Appreciate you joining us today for our second webinar in our My Team to Your Team series. Today, we're going to talk about resource management and Power Apps. Probably have more people join us as we go, but I'll go ahead and at least set the stage for our session today. Talk about a little housekeeping items as we get started. As we have folks join the session, we're going to have a Q&A channel open during the session. We encourage you to ask questions there. We will be monitoring that as we go through the presentation today, and then we'll leave some time at the end to answer those. If we do not get to your question during this session, we will do a follow-up email with a recording of the session. We are recording this, and we will include those questions and answers we did not get to during the session today. What I'd like to do now is tell you a little bit about our organization. So we are Project Made Easy. We are a Microsoft partner. We were founded in 2007. We were part of the SBA Small Business Association 8A program since 2018. We do deployments, enhancements, and training around project and work management and productivity. Started out in the project space, kind of evolved from there. We've been a Microsoft partner for 16 years. We've recently become a OnePlan partner. And what that means is we get certifications in various platforms and disciplines within the Microsoft stack. We hold a gold certification in project portfolio management and cloud productivity, and we also have certifications in application development. We've done well over 250 implementations of various sizes and shapes. We're experienced in project, Power Platform, and Power BI. As I mentioned, our start started in the project space, but evolved out of that just as people wanted to extend their processes either through workflow or forms or some sort of way to gather data around work and maybe even some assessment of projects before they actually become projects, and then obviously reporting. So we find that the Power Platform is incredibly helpful. You'll see that during our session today. And then we've got well over 100 happy customers, and the other ones are very happy, the ones that I didn't mention. So we're glad to be with you today, and we appreciate you making the time to join us. So a little bit about our team. My name is Scott Brown. I'm the Director of Business Development. I've been here at Project Made Easy about 6 years. Prior to that, I was at Microsoft in the project and Office 365 space. We're also joined by Jen Penn. She's our project delivery manager. She's a certified Scrum professional and has more than 10 years experience implementing both IT and project management processes. And then also Gaurav Wasson, he'll be monitoring our Q&A and join us toward the end. He's our senior architect. So we'll all be part of the presentation today. As I mentioned, for those of you that maybe joined after I did the introduction, we do have a Q&A channel. We ask that you put your questions in there. We will do our best to answer those if we can and not too disruptive during the session, but we will pause toward the end and address those. If we did not get to your question and the answer, we'll be sending a follow-up email to all the attendees and do our best to answer it there. With that, that's our team. I'm going to turn it over to Jen. She's going to kind of direct us to what we're walking through today. Jen?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jen Penn, and Scott and I today, what we want you to get out of this is how can Power Apps help me with resource management. So we're going to go through and use the tool to assign resources. We're going to look at resource availability and approve resource requests, 'cause there's a little bit of workflow built into the tool. And then we're going to be able to look and see and have a visual of our resource constraints. Before we get into the tool, though, I want to understand some of the challenges that we face, because we'll utilize the tool to kind of answer those questions that we have and help us with our challenges. And that typically looks like the answers to these questions. Like, these are the questions that we have. These are the challenges that we have. A lot of times this information may be in a spreadsheet, or it may be in our heads. Maybe I'm keeping track in my mind about, what my resources are working on and what their utilization is. There's gaps in that, and we could lose sight of everything that they're working on. So the tool helps visualize the answers to these questions. If you're utilizing the tool and you're adding the data, you can quickly pull it up and answer these questions rather quickly. So we're going to be able to see what people are working on, what their total capacity is versus how much they're being utilized. We can even break down what they're working on. Is it non-project work or admin work, or is it project work? We can quickly see who has availability, who's over allocated. And then we'll take you through some reports that we can use to kind of pinpoint in the future, who are we going to need to hire in the next year or so. There's a couple of approaches to that, so I'll turn it back to Scott to kind of take you through those. Oh, did we lose Scott?
Sorry, I was on mute there, not to disturb your great introduction. Thank you for that again. So when we talk to customers about wanting to deploy some sort of work management or project management solution, usually the question they're trying to solve for is, do I have enough people? I sense I don't. Or depending on what team you're on, you may go, I think we have enough people, but they keep telling me I need more. I need to prove it one way or the other. So there's a couple of ways we can go approach that. The first way is we can do what I'd call a bottom-up approach. And that's where we start from a schedule or a plan, and then we manage that in some form of solution. It could be something as simple as Excel, and we pull data out of that to give us an idea of, okay, hey, what's our resource situation here? What that requires is, it requires us to assign resources at a task level. So that requires you to have some level of detail around what your project plan or your work plan is. And you can assign either generic resources, generic is helpful, or you can assign named resources if you're very concerned about particular people. That requires a lot of detail, and it tends to be error prone because often in the process of deciding if you have the resources to take on a new project or a new program, you don't really have all that detail yet. You may not know the full set of details. So it tends to be a bit error prone. So that's a task level start from the bottom up. Now there's a top down approach where you start at the project level. You know you want to do this project. You focus on what you know at the time. So I know I want to do this project. I have a good sense of what resources we may or may not require, and I have a rough idea of what the percentage of those resources I'll need over time. So using what you know, you basically assign a resource over a time frame, whether it be months or a year, to a particular project at different times to get an indicator of what your resource needs are. Now, you could automate this a little bit. You could use templates where maybe you have projects that are somewhat repeatable, and you want to leverage a template that has, say, a generic resource, like a resource type, like a developer or a consultant or a technical lead. That gives you a great indication of what's coming. And what that will allow you to do is have a simple, fast, but yet informative view of what your resources needs are in the short and near term, and also in the long term. Is it 100% accurate? It is not, but it gives you enough to make some decisions around it, and it's easy to adjust if it's necessary. So one of the other things to consider today as we jump in here, we're going to use a Power App solution we built. We call it Fluid PPM. Is just to understand what the benefit of that is. You know, oftentimes we talk to customers, they're managing projects, they have a project management system, they have a process for sure, but it's being managed in things like, oh, that email that Jen sent me 2 weeks ago. I think Bill sent me something in a spreadsheet yesterday. Heather sent me a chat team. We had a chat on Thursday in Teams about some things, and lo and behold, it's Tuesday. I've got to do a readout with the steering committee on the status of my projects. I've got to go hunt for all that. Now, the data that's in each one of those individually is structured, but it effectively is unstructured when it comes to me and what I need to do. So one of the big wins is you just have your data in one location. That usually is a huge win. We've done deployments with customers where that was the number one thing they wanted to do. We need a central tool. We want all the data in one location, so we just know what all we're working on. So that's helpful. It's easy to access, and you've got effectively one version of the truth. You don't have to argue about, well, where did you get that last update, that type thing. Also, if you can build a rhythm, make it easy to work with, make it easy to ramp up and provide value to everyone involved in project management, both the program manager and the team member who's providing you updates and working on actual tasks, you can guarantee, you can have, not guarantee, but you can ensure that the data is current. Certainly, you may have to go do a quick update before a big meeting, but if we're working daily in this tool, we don't have to stop down and basically turn around and enter it in the official tool of the organization. We're in the official tool anyway. So we kind of work continuously there and keep the data current. Thirdly, it's consistent. So we can use templates or workflows and forms to ensure we get the data we need around resource assignments, around processes, around certain aspects of data we want to report on. We can add different fields and that type of thing. We can add enforceable workflows and notifications and handoffs to ensure that's working, and the tool sort of helps us stay between the lines, much like bumpers when you take a group of 7-year-olds to a birthday party at a bowling alley. So you still got to roll the ball down the middle to get a strike, but hey, the bumpers will keep you out of the gutter. So that's helpful as well. It keeps us consistent. The data is consumable. We'll leverage Power BI a lot with its drill down capability, with its ability to highlight where we're in danger, as opposed to having to scan row upon column of a spreadsheet. We can quickly find data that's kind of screaming at us, hey, look at me, I think I'm in trouble. And lastly, it's collaborative. We can embed this in Teams. We can extend it to SharePoint if we need to. We can even incorporate Outlook in the notification process. And if we needed to, we could build a little mobile app to kind of help us manage it that way. So very collaborative, but these are what we call the 5 C's. This is from a somewhat old Forrester report in 2009, but it's still applicable today on just having something in one location and what all that can do for your organization. Okay, so let's walk through some of the resource management use cases here. So I'm going to be a project manager in this scenario, and I am in this Power App we've built. We call this Fluid PPM. You see the logo up there on the left, but this is kind of where we're aggregating all the data around the different projects and epics that we're working on today in our organization. And what it is doing and what it does for us is it allows us to have a view of things as we move throughout our day, organizing different projects and aspects of them. I can filter this list to see what's active or in draft or proposed or even closed. It's a great way to, if you're building out a plan for, say, a coming fiscal year or quarter, you can kind of keep an archive record of those. I've got a list of menu items down the left. I could do programs. I could focus on projects and epics. I even have a co-pilot analysis here that I could probably want to schedule a whole different webinar around. We did one last month around co-pilot, but we could probably talk at length around that. Resource allocation, we'll come back to that as well. And timesheets, we'll show that at a later time. And then we can also look at reports. So all this data is in a central database. We can certainly report out on. So I'm going to focus on projects today. And the main project I'm worried about or I'm concerned about or working on right now is our Bay Plaza project. So I'm going to click into this Bay Plaza project. And what's going to happen is I'm going to get a series of detail pages here associated with this project. So again, this is a Power App. And so you and your organization, we can deploy this for you, and we can change the name of a field. We can add fields. You can see we've got information there. We've got retail space, if you will, to add more fields if you would like. But we can configure this to meet your process. That's one of the great benefits of a Power App is you can configure it to map to your process versus changing your process to map the tool. You can see there that we've got some fields that are required as designated by the asterisks there, such as the project name, the owner. I can also do things, I can score this from a prioritization. And here you can just see where I've done sort of a low, moderate, strong, and extreme impact on various business drivers here. Just a high level. You can either do that individually as the individual submits it, or you could do that as a group, as say the PMO or the program management team. But that gives me an aggregated score there. You can also see where I've got a field that tells me what tool I want to manage it in. And I also have the ability to just give it a general priority if I want. I could use both. I could use one or the other, really up to me. I can give it a planned start date and a finish date, which is very helpful for getting a horizon of where is this demand going to be and what across what. And then I can annotate its phase here. I can update that if I want. I can even assign it to a program. So that's very helpful for the basic summary page. And I've got a detail page where I can put in a budget and a forecast associated with this project. I can even provide a monetary number for the benefit that we're going to bring, whether it be a cost saving or new revenue. I can look at the actual cost that we have so far and aggregate that. And then I can articulate what the business case, the value statement, what's in scope for this project. Again, we're in the approved planning stage as well. Well, another nice feature of this is I can build out a historical status of this project over time. So what I've got here is a list of these. Oftentimes we talk to project managers and program managers, and they're always surprised when they've got projects and programs that are green forever and they suddenly turn red. So this is an attempt to kind of help make it easy for a project manager to report, but give you a historical status. So you can see here, I can add a new project report for the week. We've got the overall health sort of tied to the most, the lowest rating for scope, resource, and risk. And so that'll automatically change. But we also give the project manager the flexibility to sort of override that and just say, I know it looks yellow, but it's really green. We've got some things coming together this week. If I wanted to, I could even pre-fill this from the last week report, and that will allow me to kind of quickly create a new weekly report. I can choose which fields I want to use, and then I can kind of go through and make a few changes to the ratings. This just kind of is a quick way to kind of get me going and allow me to do a report quickly and effectively. You can see I've got some key accomplishments. I'd probably want to update that. I'd probably want to update my next steps as well. I've got the ability to format. I can even add a link if I want to send someone to a website if there's an issue or something like that. So a great resource, and it makes it easy for a project manager to keep track of that. I can also keep track of milestones. We've talked to a lot of customers that have a standard set of milestones across all projects, across all departments. And so this allows you to report out on those. You can add these as you see fit. You can see the phase they're in, a start and stop date. And then we also have the ability to track issues and risk. And so this is very helpful, allows us to prioritize them, give a description. We can categorize them, provide a due date. We can assign them to a particular person. We can have an owner associated with them. And then we can give an impact. Remember, the win with all this, going back to the slide of those 5 C's in the Forrester report, is it's all in one location. I can then do reports out on it. We also provide a very simple financial grid. What this allows you to do is just do some very high-level financial reporting around the project in various categories. You can add categories, you can take them out, and you can track across budget, forecasts, and actuals. If you wanted to, we've even done things where we've actually brought in the actuals from, say, your ERP system, as long as we have some way to uniquely identify a particular project and a category, we can do that. Otherwise, we could just use a very simple Excel-like experience to keep track of that, allow your project managers to get the information they need. And then we settle on where we're going to kind of focus our time today, and that is the project allocation page. So here in this, I'm the project manager. I'm in a project sheet, and I've got a couple things going on here. You can see that I've got different resources listed on the left. Some are named, some are not named. They're generic, as in project manager, quality controller, R&D lead. You can also see that I'm looking at the full year for 2025, and I've got some cells that are white, some are faded out, and some are light blue. Those light blue cells are indicating requests I've made for resources that have yet to be confirmed or denied or acted on by a resource manager. So you can see Drew there. I've asked for him for 15% through April, but I haven't gotten a confirmation on that. In the case of Jennifer, I wanted her time in the fourth quarter just a little bit. That was denied. That's why that's in red. So I've got a hole I need to fill with respect to a project manager in the fourth quarter. Another thing I need to look at is I've got a pending request for Steve as my business analyst there in the second quarter. I've got Ariel confirmed for 15% in the first quarter, but I don't have a business analyst for the second half of the year. So I'm going to want to address that as well. So the things I want to focus on are the business analyst and the project manager here in this while I'm in this landing page for the Bay Plaza project. So I'm simply going to go in here, and I had 10% requested for Jennifer. I got her. I'm going to go ahead and request a project manager for the 10% in the fourth quarter. You can see that's now blue. That means that's a pending request. I just dragged and dropped that across. And then I also need a business analyst. And what I will do is I don't have that listed in my generic list on the left. So I need to add that and then request a business analyst before I go to the next step here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here to the left and add in a business analyst, because again, I'm short. I probably also need to make a note to myself, figure out who Steve Shepard's boss is and see if I can get him. So I'm going to add this in. I'm going to ask for a business analyst. And again, what I'm saying by doing this, I'm asking for a generic role to be assigned, much like I did with the project manager. I'm saying, look, I need a business analyst, or in the other case, I need a project manager. I need them for this amount of time. And this allows me to fill that out when I add a new one. And I give a percentage that I want them for. And so I'm telling whoever the resource manager is, hey, I'm okay with this, with whoever you pick. And then as we do that, you'll see the grid update. And much like with the project manager, you'll see the business analyst be added, and you'll see a 15% request for July through December. So I've obviously got other requests out there, but the two I wanted to address today were getting the business analyst assigned and getting a project manager for the fourth quarter. So it looks like I'm all set there. I think what I'll do is I'll pause there. I'll just address these two. I'll go look at the others later. I'll go out and save this just to make sure it's all set and go back. And I might get a warning here. The tool will warn you if you haven't filled something in. You can see I've got some unsaved changes. I'll just skip that for now. I'm not worried about that. We'll come back and deal with that later, and I'll leave that. And so now what the tool has done is it's allowed me to go through, request the resources I need. I've got an indicator if they're pending or if they're actually validated or if they were rejected. I can use this Excel-like experience to sort of spread the request across the time period I'm interested in. And then what I can do is I can submit that. And now what will happen is the appropriate resource manager will get a notification that there's a new request out there that they need to take action on. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to the resource manager and have her take a look at these pending requests.
All right. So now I'm going to walk through as the resource manager, and I'm going to show you what the experience is like responding to those requests and just managing your team's overall allocation and capacity. So starting from the home page over here in the left navigation menu, I have a resource allocation tab. So I'm going to head and click that. And after clicking it, it will load a list of all the resources that I'm assigned to as a resource manager. With each resource, I can see their role, I can see their max availability. This item is configurable per resource. So you can see I have Abhishek here at 100, I have Ariel at 80. I can also see the generic resource for business analysts because it's my job to manage that role and fulfill the requests there. And then further down, all of my named resources or generic resources, they all have varying max capacities that are configurable for each one. So I want to make sure to manage to that max capacity. Now, over to the right grid, it shows a heat map of their availability by month. The blue appears when their capacity is not maxed out. So as long as they're blue, that blue will continue to fill up the cell. So the closer it gets to the right, the more capacity is being used. And then you can see here, June and July, Abhishek is over allocated. So it turns red to let me know. So my job here is to get all these guys out of the red and into the blue. So I want to address Abhishek here. I'll go ahead and open it up, and then I can see a list of his projects. I've already rejected one of the projects here. So this isn't causing that over allocation, but something is. I have options to just reject over allocations. I could do it for this AI, but they actually didn't request anything for this year. That's either in the past or in the future. So that's not going to help me. My other option then is to go ahead and do some negotiation, and I'll pick on this Catalyst initiative. Maybe it's a lower priority project. So I can come in here and reduce his capacity there, and then it'll show him blue. And then I'll just go ahead and set that to 10, and then I'll save it. Once I save it, it will notify the project manager for the Catalyst initiative to say, hey, Jen has reduced Abhishek's time. And so they'll have to address that in the project schedule. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip Ariel for a second, and I'm going to go to my business analyst. And I'm going to look at all the pending requests because I have a lot going on here. And you can see at the top, the Bay Plaza project that Scott showed you is listed. And over into the right, the 15% that he requested is there. We're going to say this is a high priority project and make Scott happy and give him a resource for this guy. Now, because this is a generic resource, I don't have approve or reject buttons. I have to assign it out to a person. So I'll go ahead and collapse this. And then I'll look over the list of resources to see what business analysts are available. I can look at Gaurav, and it looks like he's taking it easy the half of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and pick on Gaurav and give him something to do so he's not bored. To do that, I go back into Business Analyst, I click the menu button and I hit Replace. It'll show me a list of available resources. Now, this list is small, although I have a lot of resources, it's only showing me people that are not already in there. So Ariel, for example, she's already tied to this project and she's in the role, but she's not appearing in this list because she's already allocated. If you remember Scott's example, she's allocated for like the first half. So out of these resources, I already know that I want Gaurav. So I'm going to go ahead and select him and then hit replace. Now, what the system is doing is it's moving Bay Plaza and the allocations for the second half of the year out of this generic role, and it's moving it under Gaurav. And when we see it under Gaurav, it'll also adjust his capacity for that second half of the year. So we'll give it a second to finish. There we can see Bay Plaza is no longer under here. And then if I look over at Gaurav, I can see he's not as bored the second half of the year. He's at half his capacity. All right. Now, the other thing I can do is I can look at non-project related work. So if we only look at project work, it's sometimes hard to we lose sight of the full usage, right? And so I want to not only look at his capacity from a project standpoint, I want to make sure he still has enough time for his day-to-day. So I'm going to open up Gaurav here, and I see the Bay Plaza project at 15%. That's good. But I also have this bottom line, or the second line here, internal initiatives. It's just what I call day-to-day or non-project work. It could be called whatever works for your team. And this here represents the time he spends doing non-project work. And so if I look at Jatin, he has all project work and he looks like he's within capacity, but I haven't really thought about or visualized, is he really, over allocated or not? So I'm going to go ahead and add in his day-to-day. And then I'll say he spends, we'll go ahead and wait for this to finish. There we go. And then once it opens up, I'll say he spends about 15%. There we go. And then I can drag that over for the year. And now when I save this, it'll adjust his capacity for me. Now, one of the things I want to show you is this is why this helps me out, because it actually over allocates him. He's only available 60% of the time. And when I include his day-to-day activities, I can see he really doesn't have time. So a couple of choices I can make. I can negotiate with the project managers. Maybe I can go back to that Catalyst initiative project manager and say, hey, Jatin doesn't have time. I think in reality, the project managers are going to be like, okay, look, we got to get this done, lady. Sorry, but I need Jatin. So if that's the case, then I will have to adjust his day-to-day. Maybe there's an intern that can help out, or just realize that there's some things that Jatin takes care of on a day-to-day that we'll have to put on hold for the duration of these projects. So I can reduce that too. And that's how we can represent non-project work. All right, so after I make all of my adjustments, I have more work to do to clear some of that red. So I need to look at Ariel's April and May, and then I'll be coming back in here to look at all of the other requests for the business analyst role. And then my goal is to get this heat map down to blue, but it does give me data. So a lot of times when you're talking to upper management and you're like, hey, we need more resources or we don't have time, you want to show them data, right? And that supports what you're saying, and this will help you do that. All right, so email notification is going to go back to Scott. I handled the business analyst role. I don't have the project manager role to manage. I do have a couple of project managers on under my belt, but not all of them. So I'm not going to address that. We'll leave that up to the other resource manager. And then let's go ahead and take a look at Scott's screen to see what the outcome is on his end from the work that I've done to give him a business analyst.
All right. Thank you, Jen. So I've got a notification here that I've had some action taken on my resource request. So I'm going to go in here to the Bay Plaza project, just kind of look and see what we've got. And we'll just jump right over to the project allocation screen and take a look. And so when I hop in, I see a couple things. I see it looks like I've got my business analyst. Looks like Gaurav has been assigned a business analyst. I see 15% for July through December. It's in white, so that's telling me I'm good. But I also notice that my project manager has not been acted upon. I'm still short in that fourth quarter. So what I'll want to do is I'll want to follow up with the project manager resource management lead and figure out how do I get a project manager. I've got a little time there. I'm really happy that I've got my second half business analyst taken care of. That said, I do want to go and get a hold of Steve's boss or resource manager and find out if I can get a confirmation on him or not, or if not, maybe get Ariel assigned to that quarter as well, because that's we're just now in the thick of it. So I've made some progress there, and then I'll continue to work through this. I've got several other pending requests, and I'll just begin to work through that so that I know I've got the request I need taken care of, and my project plan is addressed from a top-down approach at the project level. The next step for me after I get this settled is I would begin to assign these resources to actual task and begin to do that if I chose to do that. But this gives me a good view both from a generic resource type, i.e. project manager, quality controller, R&D lead, or a named resource type of what I need to, what I'm going to need for this project. And then if all my peers are doing this, we begin to get an aggregated view of what's needed for our project portfolio from a resource standpoint. So with that, what we're going to do now is we're going to say, okay, we've been doing this, and let's assume our peers are doing this. What else can we learn about resource management that will help us get a better view of our overall resource needs across the organization or across the department as we move forward, looking at all these projects aggregated together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the report. So we showed you the report tab on the left there. I'm going to go ahead and hop into that. Remember, I've got all this data aggregated in one location. And I'm going to click into the reports page. This is a nice little landing page. Gives me a quick view of kind of what's happening report-wise. But I'm going to jump in and actually open the report section. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you, I've got tons of reports available here. The standard portfolio overview report here, all sitting in Power BI, that's available. But we're going to focus on our resource reports. So the first report we're looking at is what we call our resource optimization report. And what this allows me to do is look at different resources by name or by role, in the case of generics, and see what is their capacity, what is their demand, their utilization, and their availability. And it gives me a quick view into where I'm in trouble because I sort of highlight the cells where I'm in trouble. So you can see here, administrator is greatly over in demand in the first half and over demand in the second half, but to a less extent. I also get a list of the projects by name and then by month, where the demand is around that role. I can look at the business analyst by clicking in the table in the upper left. I get a similar view on the right that updates that bar graph, capacity versus demand. I can do the same for developer. Story's a little better for developer. I'm in trouble through May. Starting in June, that looks like something I can handle. I can mitigate that by offloading or just doing some other things. I can look at a named resource. So I can look at Ariel. Ariel looks like she's sitting perfect there. She's a 99% allocated through September, in the fourth quarter drops to 70. That's great because there's always these year-end things. Got a little buffer for her there. The graph shows that. So I think I'm fine there. We've done a good job of managing her. Hopefully she's feeling fulfilled. She's getting things done. She's not burnt out, but she's not just bored twiddling her fingers or twiddling her thumbs. I can also pivot this differently. I can look at just 1 year if I want, if that's helpful. I can also expand or roll it up. I can go to a month view if I want, in case I want to dive deep here. But that's available. That's the flexibility of Power BI that's very helpful to us when we can always have that available to us. But right now, just the yearly view with the capacity is incredibly helpful for me as a resource manager or as a project manager. I could make this available to my project managers and they can kind of have some insight on who to go ask for rather than kind of barter back and forth. So it saves time. And again, I can also pivot this through the job role. I can just filter it to one job role and have it, the whole chart be accessible by that through another means using the drop down. Really kind of up to you. Again, Power BI gives us that flexibility to do that. So the next is our resource utilization report. This is really nice. It gives us sort of a color-coded map of all of our resource counts by role. Very helpful. And then it gives us a nice view, this bar chart here, of our top 10 over-allocated and our top 10 under-allocated resources. So very quickly, you can kind of see, uh-oh, I'm about to burn out these folks over here. Who can I assign them to, their work to kind of help these other folks kind of get involved in the initiatives that we're working on. I can filter that by role, so I quickly can click on, say, the business analyst. I've only got 7, so I see the over allocated ones are Steve and Jotin for the most part, but I've got some other folks down here. I've got Ariel and Athera. We need to get Athera involved, so we'll work to kind of move some of Jotin's work to her if we can. And begin to do that. We can either offload work that's currently in flight and definitely pending work to address that. The other thing I can do is I can look at other roles if I want to and do the same type of analysis. It's really up to you and kind of how you use this. But again, very helpful. I've got an all-up view again here, and then I can, if you want, I can filter it over here through the drop down. And then I can go in and do a little drill down, which is very nice to get a better picture of an individual. So I'll do that with Ariel here. I'll go through the drill through and go to the resource details. And over here on the left, you see it hop down to the resource details report. I've got Ariel selected. And then I've got a detailed view of kind of what she's involved in here, what's driving her 70% available and her 99% availability. And you can see it looks like she gets some availability because the Apollo Innovations project doesn't need as much of her time. So maybe there's an opportunity there to either get her involved in another project potentially, or get her uninvolved in some of these where she's only at 5% to free her up to work on something different in the fourth quarter if we have a fourth quarter push there. This next report is what we call a resource heat map, just meant to be kind of a quick view and go, okay, looks like we're pretty busy here from developer all the way up to our administrators and the named resources there. And it looks like we've got a lot of demand January through May for everyone, with the exception of maybe the automation engineer and push pump. So a quick view of just all of my resources, both named and generic, where I can get a view of kind of where am I potentially in trouble here and what I might need to do to kind of mitigate that. Again, it's sort of, it's imagine if this was just in a Excel spreadsheet, I'd have to comb through that data to get that view. This is a nice view here as well. Jen talked about that when she was acting as a resource manager about, hey, what am I doing with my resources? How am I using that at the actual job role level from an administrative or keeping the lights on type of project, a sustaining project. How do I mitigate that? And am I over allocating people? Are we as an organization overutilizing people in the admin lights on versus putting them on projects? Is there something I can do to take that off their plate so we can turn them loose? We can turn them loose on a different role or a different set of projects. So this is a nice high-level view for a resource manager or even an HR type person to get an idea of, like, are we utilizing the resources we have, the limited resources we have, effectively? And so I would want to know, if we've got a lot of important projects working, why are we not using them effectively? Maybe it's that there's just not a lot of projects in the portfolio that demand, say, an automation engineer, and we've got more otherwise. So we just need to understand what that data is telling us. But a great resource for us here from a detail on keeping the lights on administrative. Here's our resource detail report. That was a drill down report. This is a great report both for a resource manager and even an HR director to give us an idea of, like, hey, where are we short on resources through the year? It gives us an answer in when are we short, why are we short. So it kind of tells you, you've got an input signal, hey, we need to get someone in here to address things like administrator or a business analyst. You can see we're short on testers and consultants, and kind of an idea as to why is it we have a lot of capacity in the second half of the year, but not so much the first. Do we have too many projects afoot that are started early, or maybe they're wrapping up late from the previous year, and that's causing that? And so I can click into here and get a view of where I'm in trouble and why, and then I can also begin to take action around it as well. So very helpful. It gives us the resource capacity, what resources are part of that resource name, resource type, and then gives me the detail across the year on where we get into trouble. I can also use this report to decide, hey, I need to bring in, say, a temporary help at a particular time. This deficit report here is a summary of that. So it's look across all 7 of our resource types and shows how we're doing for the year. You can see automation engineers are underutilized or about the same. Maybe we don't have a lot for them, or developers, but we do have a lot for administrators, consultants, business analysts, project managers a little bit, but we may have some others that are in trouble. We need to go address that. So these are a handful of great reports. You could build more. Again, we're using the data that we've included in that grid, in the request, and then aggregating that across all the projects and all the portfolios to give us a good view into what is the overall resource story across the portfolio and the organization. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen and talk a little bit about some resources for you.
All right, we covered quite a bit of information about Fluid PPM in a hurry. So if you have any interest in our Fluid PPM solution and how it could work for you, we have some information on our website, but feel free to contact Scott or I. Will be happy to set up some time to chat with you about it or give you a more in-depth demo of it. Also, if you're just interested in the resource management piece of that, we can offer that and connect, can just use that separately without the full EPM solution if needed. So if you're interested in just adding that resource management piece to your day-to-day process, you can contact us as well. We also have a link out here for a Microsoft site that talks about Power Apps and Power Platform. So if you're new to it or you just want a better understanding of it, go ahead and use that link to reach out. Just know we have quite a bit of experience building Power Apps. We've done things from any business processes, from project management to onboarding processes to IT processes. It's a really great tool to just customize to fit to your need, and we can do that rather quickly. a few more things that's I want to point out about our Fluid PPM tool. Coming later in the second quarter of this year, we're going to have our analyzer piece available. That will help our portfolio managers utilize resource demand and making decisions about project intake. So you can kind of see where our resources are allocated and what resources are needed for our upcoming demands, and then decide, make decisions based on how we're going to start projects and which ones we'll start and that kind of thing. The second thing that we'll have available in the second quarter is we're going to make Fluid PPM downloadable in the Microsoft App Store. So if you want to try a demo of that, that will be available. And then the full version of that as is would be available as well. And then finally, later in Q3, we're going to offer our admin settings. Those admin settings will include configuring your archive and your field settings for Fluid PPM. All right, so I will turn it over to Garv. I think he's been managing any questions in the Q&A. If there are questions now, let's go ahead and spend some time on it.
Thanks, Jen. There were two questions on the Q&A. One was for the status report, and that asked, like, if you already have a project management template, can it be adapted using Fluid PPM? The answer is yes. We can cater the tool to your need. And that's the beauty of this application, that what your need is and what your processes are, we can bring your processes into the system. Like if you have like a certain way of managing projects, we can bring those processes in. We call it WYSIWYG for the reports. Is what you see is what you get. Kind of thing. A lot of the time on status reports, people want to see like how my status gonna look. So a lot of time they will fill in the information, they'll go into the report, run the report, see it how it looks. But here we show it like what's completed, what's everything that you see right there is how your status is gonna look. So we try to make it in such a way that you can see how your status report is gonna look like. Karina had a question about if an individual has two roles, does the utilization account for the other role? No, we don't. We only account for one primary role. We do have an option to enter like a secondary role for a person. So if you're searching for a business analyst who knows clinical work or who is also an engineer and a developer, we can use that for matching purposes. But especially for the report we showed at the end, like the higher deficit reports and things like that, we do need to have like a primary role to get that information in. If anybody else has more question, there were some. Paul had a question: is the app model-driven app with Dataverse as the backend? It is a Canvas app with the Dataverse as a backend, Paul. So we are using Canvas and we want to keep it in such a way that it's easier for customers to make changes for the solution, and because that's been used by a lot of customers, like Canvas app. And there are a lot of controls that are available for Canvas. We are working on a model-driven app too, but our current focus is the Canvas app. Anyone else has a question, they can raise the hand. If I'm on, I can turn on their mic. Like, so we will send like you will receive an email from the system about the recording. So you will get the recording of this webinar. If you want to send it to others. If you have any question, want to talk a little bit more about Fluid PPM, we have Jen and Scott's information in the email. Last call for questions. Raise your hand and I'll turn on the mic. Okay, so looks like we'll give you guys 5 minutes for extra for your lunch. Thank you for joining the session.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.